I don't go from the beach living in LA, you don't go into LA very often, but I did. I got in my car immediately, drove downtown, drove to Hollywood, got the book, brought it back, walked in the door with this book with Sai Baba's picture on it, and my wife looked at it and said, oh, that's the man I dreamt about 3 weeks ago.
What?
So so he was bringing us, we just knew that. Oh, I've asked myself that same question a million times. Why? What on earth drew me here? I've always been a seeker. It is a sin defined as the Gita defines it. Something that holds you back from your spiritual growth is sinful. That's the only definition.
Storyteller, author, businessman, consultant, teacher, Jack Hawley. My guess is he prefers to be known as a follower of Indian holy man Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Welcome to Souljourns. This interview was recorded in Sai Baba's ashram in 2002.
Jack, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. This is a pleasure to be speaking with you. And I always seem to ask the one question right off the bat of everybody, so I am not going to make it any exception with you. What on earth drew you to Sathya Sai Baba?
Oh, I've asked myself that same question a million times. Why? What on earth drew me here? I've always been a seeker, and I don't know why, but I've always been interested in these kinds of mystical things. I was born and brought up a Catholic, and that part of the Catholic Church was really appealing to me. The bricks and mortar part wasn't very appealing. Mm-hmm. We brought up, my wife and I have had 7 children, we brought up all the kids Catholic, and then as I got older, I became more and more spiritual. And actually in undergraduate school, I was an art major, and it was a part of the State University of New York by New York City. And in the early 50s, mid-50s, you had to be a Zen Buddhist to be an art major painter in New York.
Everybody was, in other words.
So I read Zen, became a Zen Buddhist in a way, in our own way, and it was very interesting for me. And then after we got married, my wife and I, our relationship was always spiritual.
I would imagine it would have been very busy raising a family of 9 people, 7 kids.
It was very.
How did you have time to be spiritual?
Very busy. That's all you have time for when you've got that many.
Well, you were very good Catholics for a long time.
That's right. And then it sort of ended. And one of the ways it ended was sort of funny. I used to threaten the kids at church. I'd say, look, now if you talk out of turn, or if you talk in church, then you're going to have to stay for the next Mass. And that was the worst thing I could say to them, so that kept them in mind. And I started laughing about that with Louise. And then that combined with the Zen Buddhism and increasing interest in spirituality, working with a lot of different kinds of groups as a professional, teaching, went back to Cornell and got some graduate degrees, and I got more and more interested in it.
Let me ask you, did the mystical element of Catholicism have any appeal for you?
Yes, it did, but it didn't have the cachet. It didn't have the extra little oomph or something that going far afield did.
Yeah.
There's an adventurer in me, perhaps,
Yeah,
that
I
needed to
relate
go.
to that.
Okay. Now, interestingly, and after all these years being in India, I can appreciate that much more. I mean, really, truthfully appreciate that mystical element.
I've talked to so many people who've been drawn to Sai Baba who were very strong in their Protestant beliefs, who really felt the wrath of friends and relatives who were Protestants because they couldn't relate to the mystical side of spirituality as much as Catholicism, Judaism, and whatnot. So you had something there that was pretty rare, and you weren't even aware of it for a long time because there's no cachet, as you said, for a while.
Yes, and it was in my own backyard, and it was more of an adventure to see it in Alan Watts, for example, or to hear it from someone else.
Yeah.
So that's what gradually brought me in this direction.
All right, then what was the literal event that tipped you at this guy's front door one day?
The literal event was a fellow that worked for me for a number of years, Bob Daniele. We lost touch with each other. He and I went our separate ways after a number of years in working in California aerospace industry. Then I got a little postcard from him. It was written in pencil, a little postcard from the post office, and it said, "Dear Jack, this is your lucky day, Hawley." He said, "I'm sitting," and he was very spiritual, and we used to talk about these things a lot. So he said, "This is your lucky day indeed, because I am sitting here on the porch." He used the word porch. "I'm sitting here on the porch of God." So I'm spending as much time as I can here in India. This is after not seeing him for 2 years. So my interest was indeed tweaked. And he said, and a book had just come out, and the only place you can get it in Los Angeles is in Hollywood at the center. I didn't know what the center was.
The Tustin Center you're talking
No, this is in Hollywood.
Okay. The Bodhi Tree?
No, this was the Sai Center in Hollywood.
The Sai Center in Hollywood, okay.
I forget the street it was on. But he said, go, and on this postcard, he said, "Go there and buy this book by Sam Sandweiss." So, and it just came out. That was in 1976. So I don't go from the beach living in LA, you don't go into LA very often, but I did. I got in my car immediately, drove downtown, drove to Hollywood, got the book, brought it back, walked in the door with this book with Sai Baba's picture on it, and my wife looked at it and said, "Oh, that's the man I dreamt about 3 weeks ago."
What?
So so he was bringing us, we just knew that.
She dreamed, by recognizing his picture,
Yes.
she identified him
Yes.
because of her dream.
Well, it was a very pretty dream too. She dreamed that a Jesus came to her, and then in addition to Jesus, there was this other brown face that she didn't quite know, this fuzzy-haired fellow. So he came also, and in the same voice, they both looked at her and said, "Well, what do you love?" And she said, "I love God with my whole heart." And then they went away. But she was so touched by that. It was so important to her that she didn't tell me.
So on your radar screen then, her reaction to the book you just brought into the house all of a sudden made a difference for you too.
Yes, it did. Well, yes,
Your
but
friend
it
recommended?
wasn't a total upheaval, but it made a difference. I had been turning toward vegetarianism just by nature, because I could read what the Bureau of Health was coming out with and so forth, the National Institute of Health. So I was turning in that direction, and then just everything seemed to click, and we moved more seriously in this direction. 2 years later, I came to India alone. We still had some kids at home, and she just was too tied down. So I knew it was going to be a long trip, and really there was some skepticism in me. And the skepticism was this, that I live in Southern California, and every fifth person you meet on the street there is a guru of some kind or another, and they all come through with the answer. Oh, here's a fellow with the answer. He's
The
got the answer.
teacher, the guru to align yourself with.
So even though my good friend Bob told me about this person here, this entity, and I'd read some books, and I read Sam's wonderful book that introduces a lot of people to Swami, I still had that skepticism in me.
So your friendship with Sam, with your buddy, and Sam Sandweiss's book, and your wife's dream, three powerful catalysts. They weren't quite enough to push you over the deep end yet.
No.
You still had some skepticism.
Oh, no, that's right.
Yeah.
There's a skeptic in me.
Yeah. Well, that's
still
healthy,
is.
probably.
Okay. Well, it is for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it is for many people, but it is for me.
Then what?
So then I came, but I came to India, and I think, see, I'm a consultant by that time, so I think, well, it's a long trip, an expensive trip, and what if this turns out to be a totally phony kind of a situation? So I hedged my bet. Then I called up some friends, got some business in Japan, and then from Japan I went to Hong Kong, had a little business in Hong Kong, went into Thailand. I had a little business in Thailand, even had a couple of people
Getting
meet.
closer and closer, aren't you?
Oh yes. Well, my objective was to come here to India. I mean, it was absolutely clear I wanted to do that, but I wanted to hedge my bet.
Yeah.
Because, what if this turns out to be a total...
You want to have some business along the way,
That's
too.
right. So, that's my Protestant ethic coming out, I think. So anyway, and then when I got here, by the time I got here, I was really ready, and I was hopeful. And I had been on the road 6 weeks. Oh, and by the way, I had my negotiation with my wife was this, that if I can do this, then I'll meet you in London after, so I'll just go on around.